Chapter 171 No Going Back. You are listening at novelfull.audio. How did my brother bring the Thunder Nation to its knees? Max asked curiously. In his mind, the Thunder Nation was a great nation spanning across an entire galaxy with thousands of habitable planets under its wing. It was not a small organization that could be brought to its knees in a short period of time. Yet Patricia claimed that his brother achieved just that. As to exactly how your brother did it, I myself have no clue. To be honest, I don't think there is anyone in this universe who has a clue on how your brother thinks, but here is what happened. Your brother first targeted the various merchant unions of the Thunder Nation, making trade and commerce slow down in the nation, with the merchants trembling over the fear of their lives. Your brother alone killed 25 Tier 6 gods in guerrilla warfare and destroyed nearly 1/10 of the active battleships owned by the Thunder Nation, while destroying nearly 120 trillion gold coin worth of goods. Apparently Thor had decided to provide insurance to cover up to 70% of the merchants' losses, and this policy made him bleed unimaginable sums of money from the royal coffers. It was mayhem in the Thunder Nation. Units consisting of 4.5 gods died even though Thor clearly asked them to run if they encountered too much danger, yet not a single god managed to escape your brother's clutches. Your brother's plan was deep. With the merchants no longer readily doing trade, many key goods saw a sharp increase in price as the locals felt a big inflation problem overnight as the unrest amongst the civilians grew in the Thunder Nation. Thor pulled out more and more military out of their usual bases and allotted them to either provide security to merchant ships or to keep order on planets, leaving many military sites underdefended. You see, your brother did not attack merchant ships without discrimination. He especially targeted ships containing control parts used to create battleships and high-grade steel used to make military weapons and armors. He strategically crippled the Thunder Nation's ability to create new weapons and made sure that their current weapon depot were loosely guarded, with most of their security officers deployed on other fronts before orchestrating the raid of the century. A terrorist attack that sparked an unquenchable flame of war against the Thunder Nation and put him on the war path against Thor. In a single night, him and his elites took control of over 9% of Thor's territory, capturing 126 planets. Time rewind. 2.5 years ago, Rudra's POV. Rudra stood on stage in a secret military base, off the shore of Country J on a private island, as he addressed 50 million elite troops in person, while 90 million more watched on from bases all across the world. On his right stood the current guildmaster of the True Elites Guild and his best friend Karna, while on his left slept his now divine beast Furball. If one looked at Furball from a distance, she looked like the most fluffy and cute nine-tails that could be the perfect house pet. However, if one came under her aura, they would instantly pee their pants from the pressure she exuded, as the cute beast was no mere mortal but a Tier 6 god. It was a nostalgic feeling for the elites to see their ex-guildmaster Shikuni take the stage to address the crowd as he did before so many wars that they fought in Omega. Elites. Rudra said in his powerful godly voice, as everyone felt their bones reverberate as his voice passed through them, making everyone feel energized and hyped. After defeating Lucifer, after conquering Omega, after our last grand victory, it's time we ride into battle once more. Rudra said as deafening cheers erupted in the crowd in front of him. Their leader, their god, was leading them to glory once more. This time around, death will be real for us, but so will it be for our enemies, so if anyone wants to back off, now is the time, because it's not a game anymore, guys. The stakes are as real as they get, Rudra warned the crowd as he watched the expressions on every single man change slowly. But to his delight, everyone looked resolute. You all are good men, brave men, worthy of being called an elite. The crowd erupted into deafening cheers once more. This meant everything to them, coming from the ex-guildmaster. This time, we take the Thunder Nation by storm. 130 planets, to be captured, 130 million of us ready to fight. Rudra said as he revealed a small part of the plan. The elites felt slightly uneasy hearing the plan. Everyone knew the Thunder Nation's reputation, but their blind faith in Rudra and his abilities turned that nervousness into excitement, as they knew that if Rudra had planned the attack, it would be a success. The One Night family has agreed to send us 15 Tier 6 gods and 120 Tier 5 generals to aid us in our cause, for which we are grateful. Some of you will be led by them. Some of you will be led by our elite captains, and your briefing will happen on board your ships on our journey towards the Thunder Nation territory. So say your prayers, call your family and friends and kiss your kids goodbye, because we will be gone from Earth for a while now. 'Cause we will not let go of the planets we capture, guys, for they will be ours to keep. Rudra made his intentions clear as he gave his men 3 hours to tidy up their affairs. For those of you who choose not to come, you will not be judged at all. Feel free to back off from this mission, for I alone am enough to take down those 130 planets myself. For those of you who are with me, from the bottom of your lungs give me the shout of your lives. One for all. The moment Rudra said one for all, a synchronous deafening chant from the crowd continued, all for one, go elites go. Rudra smiled as he looked at the morale of his people. He had groomed tigers in his time in Omega. The elites under him were not afraid of anyone or anything, and as a unit they were unstoppable. Rudra knew the consequences that his attacks would bring today, because unlike his guerrilla attacks that had left Thor scratching his scalp as to who was behind it, today was going to be the declaration of war. Once he did this, there would be no coming back, because between him and Thor, only one would walk out of this conflict alive. /////A/N. Merry Christmas, guys, my warmest regards to everyone. ////. Chapter 172 Vampiric Dragon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 2.5 years ago, Kremetha's cave, ha 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 ha. Rhea and Kremeth watched Max and Sebastian play with Miracle as Rhea could not help but be disappointed in her baby. Looking at Miracle readily letting Max rub her belly and tickle her, Rhea felt her draconian pride be disturbed. A belly was one of the only weak spots in a dragon's armor, especially in the younger stages of their life, and her baby seemed to have no regard for exposing it to Max. Your disciple is spoiling my child, Rhea said, sounding annoyed. I am annoyed more. You see, even after the massacre, my hut's location is now compromised throughout the dungeon, and so many of your clansmen lurk in the woods waiting for an opportunity to strike your baby down. So it's a headache for me. I can't go out without 50 eyes following me, a complete disaster for my hermit lifestyle, Kremeth replied, giving Rhea no room to argue anymore. Rhea had never been schooled like a little girl for many centuries now. However, the longer she stayed at Kremeth's cave, the better she understood the old man's power. Now she knew better than to cross him, as the Dragon Queen conveniently changed the topic to avert his wrath. If you want me to transform the vampire, you need to bring me at least 4 nearly dead dragons, tier 4 at the minimum, and 10,000 high-grade spirit stones. You will need to shield me from nature's tribulations during the process, and for my reward of going above and beyond to cure his mana veins, you will tutor my child as your disciple, teach it the coward's way, alongside the 2 bipedals. Rhea said as Kremeth looked at her with interest. Apparently Rhea knew how to fix Max's destroyed mana veins, a process that not even Kremeth was familiar with. However, he was very interested to learn. The only problem was, that to cure Max of his collapsed mana veins, Rhea needed to induce at least some draconian element into him to make him a form of lesser dragon, as the method known to her only worked on draconic species. Her solution to this problem was to change Max's race from primordial vampire to draconic primordial vampire, a racial mixture that the universe had probably never witnessed before. In the wide universe, there was a clan of vampiric dragons found in the Dark Faction territory, where dragons drank blood for sustenance and had a satiety index which governed their behavior. However, the other way around had never been achieved, where a bipedal was given draconic powers. The vampiric dragon was also born after generations of cross-breeding, as first vampires bred with their lizard men counterparts to form bipedal vampiric lizards. It was one of these vampiric lizards that managed to have a proper 4-legged dragon offspring with a lesser-ranked earth dragon species. However, the baby did not have the ability to fly. It was the descendant of the earth dragon with 4 feet that crossed with a proper dragon and gave birth to a new species of dragons called the vampiric dragons, which was how that clan came into existence. This method could not be used to transform Max, however, which was why Rhea demanded for 4 near-dead dragons and 10,000 high-grade mana stones, as the process she had in mind to transform Max was to alter the very essence of his being. The process itself was outlawed by the Universal Queen, and was a method straight out of the ancient dragon archives. The process went against the rules of the universe and hence was sure to trigger nature's tribulation upon initiation, while the wrath of the Universal Queen was a matter in of itself. Had the Queen chosen not to mess with her baby, Rhea would never choose to mess with her laws so blatantly, but now she did not care. The Queen was her enemy and one day or the other she was going to tear her down. If the results are satisfactory, I will tutor your baby, wholeheartedly at that. However, what are the potential downsides of my disciple becoming a part dragon? Kremeth asked as Rhea internally rolled her tongue. Nothing slipped past the old turtle. He knew that any big transformation were not without downsides. He will not be able to racially evolve anymore, it will be the end of the road for him. He may not be able to breed with any other species except dragon and vampire, with his DNA being too chaotic to match with other species. He already has primordial instincts close to that of a beast, but they will be magnified with him becoming one of the beasts. There is a 40% chance of his mind not being able to tolerate the pain and hence him dying. There is a 60% chance he grows a tail. And there is a 10% chance he grows a second heart. Rhea said as Kremeth began to hum slightly. The downsides of this treatment were not much when compared to Max's lack of ability to use mana. In the end, as his master, Kremeth decided that the benefits outweighed the risks, which was why he decided to start gathering the materials needed for the procedure, while simultaneously beginning to train Max's mind. 3 months, I need 3 months to prepare everything you want, but in good faith, I will begin training your kid from today. Kremeth said as his eyes zeroed down on the bunch of playing children. Alright kids, time for play is over, Kremeth shouted as Max, Sebastian, and Miracle were caught off guard. When all 3 of them looked at Kremeth with slightly scared yet blank expressions, the Hermit Turtle said with a smile, "It's time for the Turtle Hermit Way lesson number 1. You will write it 1,000 times on 1,000 leaves. The lesson is, when you see an opponent stronger than you, run." Max and Sebastian scratched their heads at the lesson while Miracle looked into her mother's eyes and asked through eye contact if the old turtle was senile. However, as Rhea told her to do as the old man said, Miracle felt betrayed as she sulked and purred. You have 3 hours to complete the task, failure to do so will result in you missing out on the practical lesson afterwards. Kremeth said as he left 3 inkpots in the house before vanishing in an instant. Chapter 173 Space Wars. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Max wrote the first Turtle Hermit lesson 1,000 times while he cursed 10,000 times. In his heart Max had still not understood the way of the coward, hence he looked down on the lesson even though he followed it out of obedience. Sebastian on the other hand wrote it with the intention of learning it. He was more than convinced with the old turtle's strength and wanted to be a devoted disciple. A handwriting difference could clearly be seen between Leaf 1 versus Leaf 1000, as while at the start Max and Sebastian wrote it with conscious effort, after writing it about 200 times it became a mechanical code in their brain, which turned into a doctor's prescription like writing after 500. Miracle on the other hand wrote directly from her nails, using one of her legs, and her writing was much more consistent than the other 2, however, she looked the grumpiest about it. 3 hours later, Kremeth came back and checked the work of the 3, and after being satisfied that they had all completed the task, he decided to take the kids out for a practical lesson. Kremeth had made a comprehensive plan to teach his disciples over the next 2.5 years, and he wanted to focus on 3 key areas. 1. Skill mastery. He noticed that both Max and Sebastian had many skills, but 80% of them were stuck on the basic mastery level. The children clearly did not understand the importance of mastering the skills that he knew, and it was a big agenda for Kremeth. 2. Functional skills. All 3 of his disciples needed to learn functional skills like evade, retreat, counter, parry, and vanish. Although these were the most basic skills for a warrior to have, they were like learning how to walk and talk. Any warrior without these skills was incomplete, and Kremeth wanted to teach these techniques to his disciples and bring it to at least a master level mastery. 3. Mentality. It was the mindset that finally differentiated the extraordinary warriors from the ordinary ones. Everyone who could rise up to the power level of a god was an excellent warrior in their own rights. Such warriors had little to no flaws in their fighting style, and they were not easy to trick or defeat through deceit. It was only a warrior's mentality then that allowed a few to rise up to tier 8 while others could spend centuries trying to go from a tier 6 god to a tier 7 one and still fail. The way of the coward was not designed by Kremeth to transform his disciples into literal cowards that only ran away from battles all the time. It was a mentality that was designed to help them suppress emotions like pride, anger, and bloodlust, while teaching them the importance of being cautious and never underestimating an opponent. Pride was what became the fall of most gods, a rigidity that made them inflexible, unable to be molded into new roles, and it was exactly this weakness that Kremeth tried to eliminate in his disciples early on. Because an opponent that could never be baited into traps, an opponent that thought with his mind rather than emotions, was an opponent who would always be superior to his emotional counterparts in battle, an extraordinary god amongst ordinary ones. For this, he was prepared to be hated, he was prepared to be looked down upon, because he knew that the day his disciples truly understood the merits of his ways they would respect him. Meanwhile, Rudra, we will reach the target galaxy in 14 minutes, sir. We expect a response legion to be deployed in 22 minutes. A soldier reported to Rudra, who was enjoying a cup of fresh tea with his friend Fatty. Fatty, how many pieces do you think the incoming ships will blow into? Rudra asked as Fatty sipped his tea and mulled over the question. Fatty Kalash had very sneakily mixed explosive rigged control panels amongst a machinery shipment going to the Thunder Nation to revive old decommissioned ships after the recent loss of battleships caused by Rudra's mayhem. It was also partly the reason why Rudra had decided to attack the region of Thor's galaxy that he was attacking today, as it was the ones where the old ships had been deployed to. 4. 5 if they are the awful old starships with the command center at the central joint. 2 for the modern battleships, but I don't think there will be many of those as they are usually still in active duty. Fatty replied as Rudra nodded to his answer. It was about what he assumed as well. This is the Thunder Nation, Northern Command Center speaking. You have entered the Thunder Nation territory and are no longer in free universal space. Panday. N0v1.com. Your consignment is above the permitted threshold, so you must identify yourselves and your purpose of entry, otherwise you shall be neutralized. A radio transmission warned every ship heading into Thor's territory as Rudra felt amused by the threat. Picking up a transmission device, Rudra replied with arrogance, "This is Thor's father speaking. Our purpose to enter is to shove my earthly balls in Thor's mouth. Stand down or you shall be obliterated." Rudra looked at Fatty for appreciation over his speech as Fatty gave him a big fat thumbs up. Rudra felt satisfied with his response as he began to quickly put on armor. The first response team should be on its way now, and with this response it was clear to both sides that the time to talk was over. It was now time for a good old-fashioned space war, and right as Rudra expected, within a few short minutes hundreds of starships and about 4 dozen modern destroyer ships tearing through space in a lovely arrowhead formation. Rudra let them come very close before he picking up the tra mic once more as he said, "Elites, enjoy the fireworks. /////A/N. Bonus chapter for our dear tree in Discord growing over 555 feet. It's a Christmas miracle, you all. Let's go. ////. Chapter 174 Lesson Learnt. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Look, it's a tier 3 venomous snake sleeping soundly on that tree branch. It's probably worth a lot of EXP for you kids. How do you plan on taking it out? Kremeth asked with excitement behind his voice as the other 3 focused on the tree branch above, only noticing the snake's camouflage after much focusing. Max and Miracle began thinking seriously as after a minute Miracle spoke to Kremeth in Draconic as the few-day-old baby gave her thoughts on how to kill a snake. Wow, So you will breathe fire on it to attract it, and when it attacks you, Max will jump from underneath this rock and slash its head off by surprise, while Sebastian becomes your meat shield. What a genius plan. Kremeth said kindly as Miracle patted on her own head with her front legs in embarrassment. What about you, kid, what do you think? Kremeth asked Max, who gave a more serious answer. It's best to take it by surprise. If we can deal big damage before it wakes up, that will be best. If not, it will be a tough fight. I think I have enough time to use the Inferno spell on it. It's the strongest spell of my Agni Astra and it takes me 1.5 minutes to prepare, but I'm confident it can shave at least 20% off the snake's HP, 40% if it's a critical hit, and with me having all the time in the world to aim, I'm pretty sure I can land a critical. After that it will surely wake up and attack me. Unfortunately I can't rely on the tier 0 Miracle to help, so it will be just me and Sebastian as we YOLO our way to victory. Max said as Kremeth's smile widened. YOLO your way to victory, wow, such enlightened disciples I have got, Kremeth said as Max frowned. Unlike Miracle, Max was familiar with the concept of sarcasm and did not take words at face value like the baby dragon did. What about you, dwarf, what is your genius plan? Kremeth asked as Sebastian politely bowed and said, I will not fight master, because the Turtle Hermit Way rule number 1 says, when you see an opponent stronger than you, run. Kremeth's smile disappeared at this reply as he said, not fight, I see. Smack smack smack. In a lightning quick movement Kremeth then smacked all 3 of his disciples tightly on their heads. Ouch, ouch, idiots. I just taught you the Turtle Hermit Way, but you still proceeded to think about fighting the snake. The dragon is just naive, the vampire is even worse than the dragon. Shame on you both. You will both write the lesson again, 1,000 times, but this time by carving it on stone so you never forget. Kremeth blasted his 2 disciples for their over-the-top battle urges. But why was I smacked too? Sebastian protested. He had seen through the trap and answered correctly, but he was still beat up. You were smacked because you did not correct your friends even though you knew the right answer. Come on, dwarf, that's just the teacher's pet behavior. Kremeth said as Sebastian felt violated. Not only did his pride on answering the question correctly vanish, but he also got dirty glares from Miracle and Max. All the commotion under the tree had woke the sleeping snake up, and while the kids were not focused on it, Kremeth was. As the second it moved half a muscle, he casually shot an energy beam from his palm and killed the poor thing as it slid down the treetop and hit the ground with a thud sound. Oof, it's dead, Sebastian said as he stared at the sizzling hole in its body with amazement. Kremeth had literally killed the snake effortlessly by blowing its heart out, and he had not even turned to glance at his opponent before making the shot. So you think it's dead? Kremeth asked as he waited for despair to appear on the faces of all 3 of his disciples. The 3 of them knew the answer to his question but did not have the guts to say it because they knew that there was a big chance that it was a trap. Kremeth smiled looking at the kids' avert eye contact with him as he was satisfied that they were fast learners. You, dwarf, is it dead? Kremeth asked again, singling out Sebastian. Why? Yes. Master, Sebastian said, with his answer sounding more like a question. Smack. Sebastian was smacked hard on the head when he said yes as Kremeth said, Turtle Hermit Way lesson number 2, never assume that your opponent is dead even when the system tells you that it is. While the system will regenerate the dead within wild zones and safe zones, there are a million techniques to bring back the dead even from battle zones. Always make sure to reduce the body to ashes, then scan the area for potential allies of the dead, then make sure to kill them too and burn them to ashes. Only then can a kill be considered complete. Kremeth said as he snapped his fingers and a rain of energy beams fell from the sky, killing every single snake in the area. Kremeth proceeded to look Max dead in the eye afterwards as he summoned Max's strongest spell in an instant, Inferno. Kremeth burned the body of the snake and then proceeded to light the whole forest around them on fire in what looked like an absolute overkill in Max's eyes. I can see through you kids. You think this is an overkill. I say yes, it's an overkill, but this overkill will keep you safe. You kids have never encountered freaks who have lost portions of their soul after being regenerated by healers and not the system. Those maniacs are worse than any bloodthirsty beast you will encounter in the wild, and they are the worst sorts of enemies to have. In a battle zone, always incinerate the body of those you kill, because 99% regeneration spells which work in battle zones are useless without the body of the dead. To be 100% sure, kill the allies as well and burn them to ashes. It is the only way to have a peaceful sleep at night. Kremet said as he asked the kids to mount his back once again as he escaped from the burning forest back to cave as he was done with the day's lesson. // This is bonus chapter 2 halves for hitting the tree height goal in Discord. Good job everyone for making it possible. For those who have not joined already, here is the link. https://discord.gg/mgumq4/// Chapter 175 Boom. You are listening at novelfull.audio. One of Rudra's biggest strengths was making his enemies dance on his fingertips. Through his 2 lifetimes he had played every role in the military hierarchy. In his first life he had been the cannon fodder, he had been the useless team member, and eventually he had been the team leader. He had participated in guild wars as a soldier, as a captain, and once even as a division leader, hence he knew exactly how the lower echelons of the military world worked and how tightly were the orders of the superiors enforced. He knew how fragile morale was within G troops and how plans and formations went to hell once something started to go wrong, and it was exactly this knowledge of human behavior that allowed Rudra to become the strongest guild master in his second lifetime. While the outsiders believed it to be luck, there was never a factor of luck when Shikuni made a ploy. It was just the common masses being unaware of Rudra's fierce behind-the-scenes scheming. Fatty, blow them all up, it's Christmas time. Rudra said as Fatty Kalash pressed the detonator. Boom 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 boom. Ag beautiful, Gaia play Jingle Bells on the stereo please. Rudra said happily as he watched the newly recommissioned Starship Division ships explode into 5.6 pieces from the center. The opponents were taken by surprise, they had never suspected that their own ships would be rigged with explosives, such a thought never crossed their minds and they paid the price for it. A total of 630 starships rode out to meet Rudra's incoming army, but less than 15 of them remained once the fireworks show ended. Tier 5 and below mortals could not survive the cold void of space unless they had spatial skills, which meant that those on board the ships who had not died from the ship explosions died from the space void as the attackers were rattled to their core as to what the hell was going on. Not a single shot fired, not a single attack delivered, not a single shield deployed, yet over 80% of incoming forces became neutralized before the fight ever began. Rudra danced lightly to the Jingle Bell theme playing in the background as with his omniscient eyes he watched the captains of the safe ships panic as debris and dead comrades floated in the space in front of them. Nobody had a clue as to what was going on as taking advantage of their confusion Rudra spoke over the radio, surrender now and be spared, defy and you will not live to see the next 5 minutes pass. Choose wisely. Rudra saw all minor captains turn heads towards the 4 ships at the head of the Arrowhead formation, inside which the Tier 6 gods were stationed. In the end the lower troops could only obey, the decision laid in the hands of the superiors. Meanwhile Max grumpily carved the stone tablets alongside Miracle, who now felt sorry for being born. She was just a child, Tier 0 at that, but she was treated the same as Max and Sebastian. Miracle's mind wanted to play, she wanted to hunt and she wanted to learn how to fly, yet she was forced to write the Turtle Hermit's rules and it was distressful. Her only solace was that Max suffered alongside her, which helped ease her suffering knowing that she was not alone in it. Grr, roar, rare, Miracle said as Max did not understand shit of what she said, but through their soul bond he somehow understood exactly what she wanted to convey. I know, right, these stones are way too hard, it takes so much energy to carve them. Max complained. Miracle proceeded to use dragon breath on the stone to soften it as then, while the stone was still hot, she quickly wrote the first rule and grinned at Max with a satisfied expression. Genius. Max exclaimed as he proceeded to use his fireball to do the same. Gur gur gur, BDNV, hee hee hee. The two laughed evilly as they felt like they had found a cheat to the system as their overall speed of writing increased significantly. Rhea could not help but feel her heart melt looking at the two obediently writing in such a cute manner. On the surface the Dragon Queen pretended to find Max annoying, but ever since Max had saved her child, in reality she had developed a soft spot for him as she slowly began liking the child's personality. Max played with Miracle and had fun but also protected her like a big brother when the time came, a quality that was much appreciated by Rhea. Leaving the kids alone, Rhea went out of the cave to go hunting after a long time, as she killed a bunch of aerodactyls and a few wyverns just for fun before feeding on white dragon meat for having her fill. Rhea was supposed to start feeding Max dragon meat in his diet. It was a part of his dragonification process where the grade of meat consumed would directly affect the quality of his transformation. Initially, she only planned on feeding Max tier 3.4 dragons, but her motherly heart softened when the time came to finally make the decision of whom to kill as she killed a peak tier 5 white dragon and after having her fill flew the carcass back for Kremeth to scrap some meat cook a meal for the kids. While Max did work hard himself, it was maestros like Kremeth, Rhea, Drax, Rudra, Hazriel and Johnny English who ensured that his future path was as smooth as they could make it to be so that Max may go the furthest that he could in life. Although Max did not realize it himself, he was truly fortunate to have the backing that he did and it was a big reason behind his fast growth. /////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////// _Sanders_2946. Please thank him in the comments section for this one, //////. Chapter 176 Ruby. You are listening at novelfull.audio. System notification. You have consumed dragon meat, intelligence increased by +1, vitality increased by +2, whoa, Max exclaimed as he got the system notification. The dinner he was eating today was extremely luxurious, but he did not think it would give him a stat bonus. Sebastian was equally surprised as the two of them looked at Kremeth in amazement. Thank the Dragon Mother, she brought in the hunt. Also, the meal you're eating is prepared with legendary grade ingredients, so yes, enjoy your free stat bonuses. It's now every day that you get it from a dinner. Kremeth said, watching the amazement in the children's eyes. Thank you Mama Dragon, Max said with a satisfied smile as Rhea felt her heart soften seeing his smile. Miracle also chomped down on her meal happily, as she enjoyed the taste of cooked meat that was specially seasoned by Kremeth so that her relatively new taste buds were not overwhelmed. Although the atmosphere in the turtle cave was joyous, Max missed Asiva and Anna this evening as he felt like if he could have shared this meal with them it would be perfect. Max especially missed Asiva a lot, as he wondered what was she up to outside the dungeon right now. Outside the dungeon, Asiva, Anna had rushed Asiva and Severus to Vanaheim, the elven capital. Vanaheim was the city which would be what heaven looked like had the angels been nature lovers. It was neat, symmetric and filled with greenery as far as the eye could see. In Vanaheim, plants literally grew everywhere. They grew between the bricks used to lay the road, on flat walls, over shades in shops and even over hats that people wore. 95% of the people roaming the streets were elves, with the remaining population being dryads, fairies, nymphs or nature spirits. Spotting a human or another bipedal species was nearly impossible, with Asiva not noticing a single one on her journey from the teleportation center to the palace. Elves were ridiculously beautiful, every one of them. Asiva knew that elves were 90% vegetarians and it was a big reason why not a single elf was obese in Vanaheim, but not only were all elves that Asiva looked at fit and in shape, they were also blessed with beautiful facial symmetry and features, with all elves having a charm value easily over 50. Had Asiva tried to enter Vanaheim without the Princess Anna by her side, she would never be let past immigration, as visitors were not exactly welcome in the kingdom of the elves. It was only because of Anna that Asiva and Severus were escorted and permitted to enter without any questions being asked, as the trio quickly made their way to the royal palace. The royal palace of Vanaheim was a castle that put all other castles to shame. It was built like a pyramid but not in a rigid triangular format, but a rather beautiful engineering full of ebbs and dips and uneven surfaces that gave the rough look of being pyramidal from a distance. Just like the rest of the city, it was also covered in beautiful plants, with many flowers blooming under the sunlight during daytime, giving the palace a new makeover every day as it changed colors daily. If not for the urgent need to check on Max and Sebastian's whereabouts, Asiva would have stopped for a moment to admire the castle's beauty, but there was no time for it at the moment. As the trio rushed past the palace gates after the guards opened the gate recognizing Anna, they had to still make their way through 7 checkpoints before they were about to roam freely through the castle's inner residential area. When Asiva finally spotted Ruby playing in the palace gardens with 2 snow-white lions, she felt awestruck looking at her beauty. Ruby had the most beautiful skin she had ever seen, as she was fair but not jade-like fair, having the slightest hint of brown in her tone making it appear as a beautiful wheat tone. She wore a green dress that perfectly complemented her skin tone, and her eyes were the shade of a glistening ruby, probably the reason behind her getting the name that she had. "Big sister!" Anna exclaimed breathlessly as she called for Ruby's attention, who was caught off guard seeing Anna return from university so early. "Anna! Why are you here today? What happened?" Ruby asked in a concerned voice that was extremely melodious as Anna gave her a quick and short recap of what happened and why she needed to borrow her viewing treasure this very instance. Ruby readily agreed, and the 4 of them rushed to Ruby's room to take a look at Ruby's semi-divine treasure crystal that allowed her to see anyone she wished to see. Asiva's heart was beating extremely fast when Ruby began searching for Max, as while she did not wish for it to happen, there was a slight fear in her heart that Max might be dead. She was not mentally ready to accept that loss, which was why her heart beat strongly, hoping that her worst fear did not come true. When Ruby finally found Max, he was shirtless and being whipped by what looked like a short dwarf. "Why is Sebastian whipping Max?" Anna said out loud as the sound of knuckles cracking could be heard in the room. Asiva was extremely glad to see that Max was at least still alive and well. However, looking at Sebastian whipping him, Asiva subconsciously cracked her knuckles as she noted this scene deep into her memory. Sooner or later, she swore to return the favor to Sebastian, if she someday met him outside the dungeon. The group continued monitoring Max and Sebastian for a while more, as they actively discussed and theorized what might be really going on. /////A/N. This bonus chapter is sponsored by patron Cervantes91, please thank him in the comments for this one. This concludes all the bonuses for the day ////. Chapter 177 Old School. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Thor's Northern Forces Commander, Sir, we have confirmed that God Shikini of Earth has launched an attack on the northern region of our territory. The border response team has set out to stop him, but we have lost all communications with the response ships. A soldier reported to Mavi, the northern commander of Thor's territories, a Tier 7 god. Mavi was one of Thor's oldest friends. He had been with Thor ever since Thor was a Tier 5 mortal, and their friendship was centuries old. However, it was not friendship that landed Mavi his position as the northern commander, it was his impeccable war results and prowess as a warrior that did. When Thor began carving out his empire in the universe, challenging the monarchs, expanding his divinity, it was Mavi who was his enforcer and slaughterer, as the orc god was unstoppable on the battlefield. Mavi was fearsome because, contrary to the racial tendency of orcs to not use much brains to fight, Mavi was a scholar and had heavily invested his free stat points into the intelligence stat. He was fearless, but not foolish, which made him a troublesome opponent to deal with. He was a pillar of Thor's empire and one of his only 2 Tier 7 subjects. Shikini, if I remember correctly, it is the brat who just came out hot from Omega as a Tier 6 god. It's been only a year and he thinks he can challenge Thor. Looks like someone needs to be taught a lesson in respect. Mavi said calmly as he got up from his throne-like chair and looked at the presented report. After confirming the coordinates of where the battle was going on, Mavi disappeared from his position as he used a spatial movement technique to reach the coordinates fast. Meanwhile Rudra, you know guys, I used to enjoy working out a lot, especially the forearm grip exercise. There used to be this pliers-like device that would be hard to squeeze, it helped build forearms. A great device. But after I became like tier 4 all earthly materials became too weak to give me proper resistance. I have to thank you for today, because you have provided me with the opportunity to train my forearms after such a long time today, Rudra said as he squeezed the necks of 2 tier 6 gods at once. The gods in his grip were struggling violently, trying to conjure spells, trying to break away, however, they failed to do so under the grip of Shikuni the undefeated. Rudra had gained such a high proficiency in his skill, mana drain, that he made it impossible for his target to send mana through his body's mana veins without Rudra absorbing it first, nullifying any spells that they could conjure. The elites had completely one-sidedly wiped out the Thunder Nation forces as Earth's destroyer ships proved to be much technologically superior, and with the enemy having no defensive formation to rely upon in battle, it was easy pickings later on. The 2 gods that Rudra was exercising on were purple from neck above as the blood supply was completely choked by Rudra, making them slowly lose consciousness. Although Rudra was primarily focused on killing the 2 gods in his palms, he was also on the lookout for Mavai, and the moment he saw a small spatial tear heading his way through his omniscient eyes, he immediately choked the necks of the 2 gods in his palms, making their brains explode as Mavai arrived to a horrifying death scene. For a moment the orc god was stunned to witness the one-sided route and Rudra's brutality of killing 2 tier 6 gods with his bare hands. However, he recovered equally fast as he flew up to Rudra, staring him straight in the eye. Rudra was not a short man by any means, but compared to the 8'5" Mavai, he was tiny. Mavai looked like the type of guy who could use the snout of an elephant as a leverage point to throw elephants like a shot put. A peak specimen of muscles and strength who after 1,000 years of constant battles was covered in battle scars, a proof that he had been in many near-death encounters but was still standing. What toy do you have on you that prevents my eyes from scanning your level? Mavai asked Rudra curiously, what confidence do you have to stand before me without an armor equipped? Rudra replied arrogantly in response as his confidence threw Mavai slightly off his game. I don't need armor to deal with you or the ant army behind you, Mavai said as he flexed his muscles in front of Rudra, making his already huge body appear much larger in hopes of intimidating the earthen god. Well, the ant army behind me obliterated your boys, so what does it make your troops? Rudra asked with a cheeky grin on his face as he pointed the middle finger at Mavio.org, ha ha ha, a funny one aren't you boy? Well, since you are fresh out of Omega, let me tell you how the real universe works. Here, gods don't fall as easy as ants, the difference between tiers is unbridgeable, even if your tier 6 ass can kill those 2 tier 6 gods it can't scratch my tier 7 body. Mavai was about to say more when he felt a dangerous incoming attack as he immediately tried to jump back and retreat. Mavai moved barely in time to dodge Rudra's movement of unsheathing his sword and swiping it at Mavai's bare chest, as although the tier 7 god dodged the attack, a trickle of blood streamed down his chest where Rudra's blade had cut him. The whole process happened so fast Mavai barely had any time to react as he stared at Rudra wide-eyed after the attack, as he realized that his opponent was probably not as weak as he thought he was. You were saying? Rudra said with a cheeky voice as he enjoyed watching the color drain out of Mavai's face. Who the fuck are you? Mavai asked, panic seeping into his voice as he realized that today's fight was going to be a long and tough one. Chapter 178 Rudra vs Mavai. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mavai instantly equipped his armor as he became vigilant against Rudra. In this instant, Mavai regretted not informing Thor that he was going out to fight, as in his overconfidence he believed he did not need any back-up to handle Shikuni the undefeated, a decision that he greatly regretted at the moment. Well, I thought somebody did not need armor to deal with me. Rudra taunted Mavai, but the orc was not baited by Rudra's words as he remained vigilant and did not show any intentions to engage first. Shing, a massive shockwave was created when Rudra suddenly drew his swords and attacked Mavai, who brought out his own longsword to block the incoming attack. Shua. The two engaged in super high-speed combat as every casual attack that they exchanged was above tier 5 in strength and power. Mavai tried to gauge Rudra's power depth but failed to do so, as while he was going at 90% power, Rudra did not even seem to be using 50% of his own. How is a newly ascended tier 6 god able to match my speed and strength? What sorcery makes this possible? Mavai asked Rudra, as he could not wrap his head around this mystery. Rudra did not reply to Mavai's question, but instead began a run and move maneuver as he began to slowly draw Mavai away from the rest of the elite battleships and towards the nearest inhabited planet called Urias. Mavai did not even realize that he was being slowly drawn towards a planet and away from his duties as the commander of northern forces, as Rudra's elites completely slipped past his line of sight to capture planets without opposition. Slam! Rudra attacked Mavai with his full might, causing the god to drop down like an asteroid on the planet below as he became a flaming ball of fire before crashing on the surface with a bang. System notification. You have entered the battle zone, Urias. You have encroached upon Thunder Nation territory without permission. Beware of retaliation. How despicable of you to drag me to an inhabited planet. We could have fought in the open space without disturbing local life, but you scumbag had to drag me down here, didn't you? Mavai roared angrily at Rudra, who just shrugged his shoulders in response. Rudra was no saint. He knew that if he fought Mavai on a planet, the god would not be able to use his most destructive tier 7 attacks freely, as he would hesitate for the sake of the local lifeforms, just like Rudra would if he were fighting someone on Earth. However, this weakness of Mavai was an advantage that Rudra could exploit, and he was sure as hell not letting such a big advantage slip by. You can always surrender. Let me restrict you with bindings and save the planet. Yes, I agree, I'm a scumbag, but me being one does not take away the opportunity from you to be the hero, Rudra replied pragmatically, his nonchalance getting under Mavai's skin. Spit! You are worse than dark faction lowlives, Mavai said with anger as Rudra grinned back and said, I need to wipe them out. Saying so, the two clashed once again as Rudra used blink spell to teleport behind Mavai as he used his divine skill, Moon Slash, to sever Mavis' left shoulder. 102.000.000. Gah! Mavai roared in unfathomable pain as the planet below his feet began to crumple, Rudra's attack having sliced it in two parts. Impossible, for you to activate a divine skill so fast you need to have a perfect mastery over it. I've been a tier 7 god for over 6 centuries now, yet I'm unable to bring a single one of my skill to perfect mastery. How did you manage to do it in such a short time? Mavai said in disbelief as he used his spatial escape technique to escape the dying planet, which soon exploded with a huge explosion. System notification. You have killed 1.2 billion light faction inhabitants of varying strength levels. Plus 4 billion EXP, system notification. You have leveled up. System notification. You have leveled up. Rudra leveled up twice from the kill as he smiled in satisfaction. You still think you can beat me? Rudra asked as he approached the wounded Mavai with menacing eyes. Mavai's mental state had begun to collapse. Not only was Rudra stronger and faster than him, but his techniques were also much superior. A mastery over a technique greatly decreased its activation time, and the harder the skill was to execute, the longer was its activation time. For gods to activate planetary devastation skills, they needed at least 1.2 minutes of preparation, while Rudra could do so instantly. You can't be a newly ascended god, you are undoubtedly an old monster. Who the fuck are you? Mavai asked as he began preparing his ultimate move against Rudra. Rudra knew that if his opponent had a hidden card, now would be the time for him to use it, hence Rudra activated his ultimate skill, Future Sight, and began peering 3 minutes into the future as the present timeline went still. Timeline break, show me your stat panel once, I demand to know the depth of the man who defeated me. Grant me this one last wish please, Mavai said as he hung his head low, hoping that his pitiful act would deceive the master manipulator. No, Rudra said as he went in for the kill by trying to take Mavai's head off. As Rudra sliced his sword, Mavai reached out with his only remaining arm towards Rudra's body, as his hand touched Rudra's body a split second before Rudra's sword touched his neck. Rudra felt paralyzed when the finger touched his body, as although his enemy's neck was right there in front of him, he could not move an inch as Mavai looked into his eyes with a sickening smile. "You are stronger than me, but you underestimate my resolve to defeat you. Even at the cost of my own life, I will drag you down with me here today." Mavai said as he used his ultimate move, Death Paralysis. Mavai's HP pool began to burn down fast, however, Rudra's HP pool burnt twice as fast. Mavai had decided to take Rudra down with him, as while his own HP hit 0, he made sure to bring Rudra down with him. Timeline recall, witnessing his own death by an absurd attack, a huge smile spread on Rudra's face. His opponent here today indeed had means beyond his imagination, and had Rudra not listened to his instincts that told him that the man was dangerous, he would probably be dead today. "Show me your stat panel once, I demand to know the depth of the man who defeated me. Grant me this one last wish please," Mavai said as he hung his head low. "Sure," Rudra said with a smile as he willed the shroud over his stat panel to be lifted so that Mavai could inspect him. XX. Basic information, name. Shikuni 1 Knight, race. True Angel, class. Death Knight, SSS, profession. Explosion Artist, alignment. Neutral, languages. Bipedal English, Draconic, Beast, Nymph, Ancient Runic, titles. Shikuni the Undefeated, Honorable Death Knight, Savior of Thal Village, Revered Medicine Master, Honorary Archbishop of the Church of Life, World-Renowned, Heir of Augustus 1 Knight, Achiever, Dragon Slayer, Supreme Overlord, Legendary Demon Slayer, Superior Human, Pope of the Church of Death, History Maker, Powerhouse, Explorer of Realms, Level 1775, 3%, Tier 7, System Remark. An existence above all existences, stats, mana. 700 million, health. 980,600,900, stamina. 793 million, attributes, strength. 450,000 dexterity. 308,000 agility. 500,000 plus, 250,000, constitution. 525,000 intelligence. 410,000 endurance. 378,000 unassigned AP. 0, hidden attributes, luck, /100 charisma. 99/100 wisdom. Karmic value. Skills, Galactic Eyes, Divine, Complete Martial Arts Mastery, Divine, Death Style Sword Arts, Divine, Holy Lance, Divine, Dance of Death, Divine, Complete Gravity Manipulation, Divine, Spatial Manipulation, Divine, Future Sight, Godly, Elite Blast, Self-Created, True Counter, Divine, Moon Slash, Divine, Asteroid Rain, Cosmic, Class-Specific Skills. Death Knight Summoning, Death Emperor's Aura Suppression, Black Ratio, Enhanced Full Counter, Death Legion, Knight of the Empire, Complete, Time Dilation, Undead Ruler, True Angel's Perfected Memory, Equipment, Sun God's Bracelet, Elite Armor, Divine, Mana Stone, Ancient, Lucifer's Shoulder Pads, Divine, Weapons. Grim Reaper, Ancient, Excalibur, Divine, Unique, Resistances. Complete Gravity Resistance. High Mental Manipulation Resistance, Pet/Mount. Divine Ninetails, Furball, XX. Mavai was stunned silent to see Rudra's real stats, whether his titles, his tier or his stats that were higher than even Thor. Mavai could not wrap his mind around a single one of them. Impossible, this is impossible, you are stronger than Thor, stronger than a monarch. Mavai said, screaming his lungs out. Unfortunately for the Tier 7 god, Rudra's stats were the last thing he saw in his life. As taking advantage of his astonishment, Rudra unleashed his long-range power attack, Elite Blast, blasting a hole through the Tier 7 god's heart. Chapter 179. You have some balls. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Thunder Nation Council, the Earthen elites have captured 126 and have destroyed 2, they have neutralized the entire Northern Legion and their leader Shikuni has slain Commander Mavai. A councilman read a report as loud gasps and shocks could be heard throughout the council. There was anger in Thor's mind, a strong desire for revenge, however, there was more shock. Mavai was like a brother to Thor, the two had been together for centuries and Thor knew Mavai's temperament well. Mavai was not a man who could be baited into a fight against a stronger opponent or someone without the means to retreat. For him to fall in battle meant that he was utterly outclassed by his opponent. An outcome that was hard to digest for Thor. War. War. We must fight back, this transgression cannot be left unpunished. We must kill Shikuni of the elites, he must die or else the universe will see us as weaklings. Silence. Thor demanded silence from his murmuring councilman as he looked at the scout and asked, "Can we take the 126 planets back?" The scout hung his head in shame at this question as he said, "Without killing the locals, it is not possible. The elites will retreat, but they won't leave the planets intact, they are like dark faction scum. The planet I was stationed at, they use civilian lives as a bargain chip to make the military forces surrender. They are very ruthless and have no shame in using the lives of locals as their bargain chip." The scout's comments made many council members wince at being called a scum, but they managed to maintain their facade and did not react to the insult. Thor's Thunder Nation had long been infiltrated by dark faction loyalists from head to toe, and many in his own council were such dark faction loyalists, which was the precise reason why Augustus had ordered Shikuni to carry out this strike on the Thunder Nation. If Thor wanted, he did have the capability of taking back the 126 planets from Shikuni, and he did not really care about the local life if not for a special reason. These planets worshipped Thor as their patron god and contributed to his divine essence every day. Should they be harmed while Thor took back his planets, it would result in him losing a lot of his divine essence, an outcome he was unwilling to accept. Shikuni's home planet, the small blue watery planet, can we take it as retaliation? Thor asked the scout, who shook his head in shame once again. "I'm sorry, sir, as we speak, Patricia One Knight has sent a large portion of the One Knight forces including their Tier 7 general to oversee the transfer of Earthlings from Earth to the One Knight home planet, Radiance. Although the transfer will take 3 days to complete, killing the ships would not only be difficult but may result in retaliation by the One Knight clan." The scout reported as Thor let out a deep sigh. He knew immediately that sending forces to heckle Earthlings was going to be difficult and counterproductive, while attacking them once they got on Radiance would be a pipe dream. Thor could not understand Shikuni's motives behind this strike, but based on his actions it was clear that he was there to risk it all, having given the job of keeping his race secure to the One Knights. "I'm out of ideas here, Councilman, I do not know how to handle this opponent, please speak up if you have any ideas for I am open to suggestions." Thor said, addressing his council. Thor was not like Rudra who could plan everything. From his early days he maintained a council of elders who would guide him, as while Thor's say on a matter was final he would always like to hear many different perspectives before forming his own. "My lord, if I may be bold, I would suggest looking for hired help. The enemy clearly does not respect the honor and dignity that makes us light faction members better than the dark, so I suggest we do the same. We fight poison with poison. We collaborate secretly with the dark faction." A dark faction supporter in the council suggested, as every other dark faction supporter loudly said "AYE," while tapping their feet to show support for the idea. Silence. Thor said as he raised his hand in seething anger. "I will assume you spoke those words in ignorance and spare you today, but don't you dare speak those words in front of me or anyone else again. I am Thor, son of Odin, the monarch of the Thunder Nation. It will be over my dead grave that any Thunder Nation citizen has to hire help from the dark faction scum. Although Shikuni is despicable, he is just a despicable god and that's it. Lucifer. That man is evil. If giving up the entire Thunder Nation helped me kill Lucifer, I would take that trade in a heartbeat, so don't suggest such nonsense to me again." Thor said as the dark faction supporters hung their heads down in shame as they felt a stinging pain of disgust in their hearts. Be Nov Com. It was hard to play a double role, especially when the god one revered was defamed every day in the other role. At this instance a clapping sound could be heard from outside the council hall as it seemed like they were getting closer, as if a clapping man was walking towards the council chamber. Thor immediately got up from his throne as he summoned Mjolnir from his inventory as he looked at the council door with thunderous, murderous eyes. You have some nerve coming here, Shikuni the undefeated, I will give that much to you. You do have balls. Balls that will get you killed here today. Thor said in a raspy voice as Shikuni leisurely walked into his council chambers covered in blood from head to toe with Mavai's beheaded head hanging from his waist belt. What a moving speech, Thor, I'm impressed, Shikuni said as he smiled a bright smile to Thor as the rest of the room immediately drew weapons and pointed them towards Rudra. Chapter 180 Terms of Peace. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Meanwhile Max was carrying miracles leveling at the moment as every tier 2 monster that Max killed yielded unimaginable EXP for Miracle who leveled up fast. Only 4 days after being born, Miracle was already on the cusp of breaking through to tier 1 and had started to learn bipedal English language, being able to now communicate with Max and Sebastian in broken English. Sebastian and Max had eased into their new life as disciples of Kremeth as their usual routine consisted of going out into the forest, avoiding any opponent that was even minutely stronger than themselves, overthinking every attack strategy they made and bring 4 suitable kills back to the hut for lunch. The food that they got fed in the afternoon was the food that they managed to hunt as Kremeth would cook and season their kills with exotic herbs making any average dish feel amazing. Not only did Kremeth begin teaching the two the art of cooking, but he also taught them about the anatomy of every beast that they killed by opening up the insides as he explained how various beasts had evolved with different anatomies to be able to perform specific tasks. Kremeth's knowledge in the department was admirable and his explaining style was unique, although it was knowledge on anatomy of specific monsters. The way he taught it allowed Max and Sebastian to start analyzing any beast that they came across and understand its weak points based off its anatomy. The results were noticeable for the duo as every time the two went out to kill and did their overanalyzing session, their analysis of the opponents became more and more technical. Instead of talking about ambushing the opponent and catching it off guard, they began theorizing about its weak spots and how to target them, an approach that saw them kill opponents much quicker than their previous line of thought. In the evening, Kremeth made the two practice their existing skill set as he guided them towards mastering the various skills they possessed that were essential to their fighting style. For Max, Kremeth made him focus on improving brainwash skill, while for Sebastian he told him to improve his thunder slash. Kremeth worked the duo to the bone, allowing them a meager sleep of 2 hours before sending them out to hunt once more the next day. Molding disciples was not an easy task, but Kremeth was satisfied with his work till now. Max and Sebastian did not pick fights with stronger opponents, they did not forget to incinerate dead opponents to ashes once they killed it, and they trained hard in silence at night to improve their skills. With things being such, Kremeth was confident in making consistent progress over the next 2.5 years. Rudra's POV. Rudra stood alone before Thor and his 237 councilmen, undeterred and unfazed as he dared to stare Thor straight in his eyes. Shikuni, you bastard, how dare you walk into our council? Do you think the monarch is a weakling that you can easily provoke? How dare you, a councilman yapped. So Rudra flicked his finger and sent him to the afterlife right before Thor's eyes as the entire council stood there bewildered as to what the fuck was going on. System notification. You have killed a tier 4 player named Bosom from the Light faction. Plus 230 EXP. Ha 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 ha. Thor began laughing like a maniac as he put one hand over his face and let his power surge. Soon, Rudra joined him in his laughter as the two gods began laughing like maniacs, ha 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 ha. While the two of them laughed, the rest of the council was frozen to their bones as some felt like pissing their pants upon witnessing the ruthlessness of Shikuni the barbarian. What is it that you want, Blue Eyes? Why are you deliberately looking for trouble? I can see through you. This behavior of yours is how I behaved around my father. You have an endgame, tell me what it is, and I will give you the respect that you deserve. Thor said level-headedly as Rudra was genuinely impressed by the muscle god's IQ. Rudra nodded his head. He did not feel like he would get the chance to be frank before Thor here today. He had came prepared to drag Thor to the immortal arena, but getting this unexpected chance Rudra was quite happy. He wanted to avert conflict if it were truly possible. Nodding his head Rudra said, "You are right. I do not wish to fight you, if I don't have to. But it is my One Night family's understanding that your country has been infiltrated with dark faction loyalists from the top of your rankings to the very bottom, and your territory is what the dark faction bastards use to gain intel and resources from the light. In the past you have repeatedly ignored the One Night's warnings to investigate this issue thoroughly, which is why I have been sent to take this step and oust you from power so that I can do what you were supposed to and get rid of the dark faction bastards from our lands. I have nothing against you personally and have no personal interest in any of your territories. I will gladly pay war reparations and leave your land should you agree on conducting an investigation into your government, right from every single minister in this council all the way to the bottom. If not, I'm also ready for war." Rudra said as he eyed each and every man in the room, sending shivers down their spines before looking towards Thor. The god of thunder slumped back on his throne as he took a look at every man present within his council, not able to digest the magnitude of Rudra's allegations. "My lord, the man is clearly lying, we would never." Rumble Thor smashed Mjolnir on the council floor as thunder crackled throughout the room, giving everyone a clear indication that they needed to shut up. Today, Thor had a lot of thinking to do. /////A/N This bonus chapter has been sponsored by patron Cervantes91, please thank him in the comments for this one. Guys, despite the massive help we have received from Cervantes and other whale patrons, we are trailing slightly behind number 10 at number 11 in GT rankings. I have received all the support I could ever ask for, and I won't ask for more. Yes, I would love to see us in top 10 GT rankings, but regardless of our ending rank, I will give 10 chapters on January 1st. That's a promise /////.